Hey, g'day guys. Welcome to the Noob Spearo podcast. Today I'm joined by Brad Corbett. We are in the Adreno Aspley store. It's pretty cool to be able to do an interview in store and not have a huge crowd because I always get massive stage fright as well, and so it's pretty cool just to have a good old yarn in the store while it's shut. So Brad, mate, I didn't know you were an ex-correctional officer as well, or?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we share some common ground here. We're both incredibly deep divers with massive beards, and we're ex-correctional officers. I feel like this interview's going to be a winner.
It's going to be good, mate. Yeah,
Mate, whereabouts do you live and dive? What's sort of your day-to-day?
I live down in Burleigh, and I dive. My local dive is off Tweed, around that Tweed area, and Gold Coast area.
Mm. We're about to celebrate World Friendship Day too. I know being a good buddy is something that you like to do yourself.
Yep.
You also like to have a pool of good buddies. Talk to me about a recent experience you've had of a good buddy, and then it'd be great to hear the opposite side of it as well.
Yeah, there's a few guys I dive with off the coast, and one mate in particular I really enjoy diving with because when he dives, I'm watching him, and as he comes up, I got eyes on him for like 30 seconds when he's up to the surface, all good, and then I don't even have to think or look around for him. So when I dive, I know he's got my back, he's watching me. When I pop up the surface, he's there. Like, it's just, we work in sync, we know how we dive, and it's just makes for a fun and really safe dive. So,
what are the other advantages to diving with a good buddy?
Having it, like, if anything were to happen, like, your buddy's there to help out, assist. If you shoot a decent sized fish and the fish is needs a second shot, your dive buddy will go down, check on the shot placement to see if it's secure enough. If it's not, he'll put a second shot in. Or sometimes he might be like, hey, do you want a second shot? Yep, put a second shot in. They're there as a backup, guaranteed to land the fish, and everyone's happy.
What about comms? You guys do a lot of non-verbal stuff, you're a bloke with a beard, so a lot of our communication's grunting.
Yeah.
But in the water, how does it work out? Have you guys got hand signals? How are you letting people, your mate, know what's going on?
Sometimes just, hand signals, or it's always, we just take turns of diving. So if I've dived, then he knows he's going to go next without any hand signals. Or if we get on the water, if we don't say anything on the boat, I'll point at him and be like, you dive first kind of thing. He points at me, or you dive, and just thumbs up, or they're okay, and then just sort of go with it. It just sort of works in sync, and yeah.
Yeah, right. It's funny, some of the awkward combos you have, there's a good ledge or something, and you're like, hey, if you just punch that way, there's a good opening up there. It looks like it's holding bait or something. How do they work out? Are you got to share fish and opportunities equally? Because some guys treat it like it's almost like a competition.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that happens. I think it's just respect and mutual respect with where you're diving. Like, if you already dived that ledge and you come up and hey, there's a mangrove jack under that ledge there, or there's something else down there, go have a look, and then they'll go down and have a look. Vice versa kind of thing. Most of the guys I dive with aren't competitive like that. Sort of work as a team, and we sort of cheer each other on when we land a fish. So
yeah. Those stoke moments out on the surface are pretty cool.
Definitely.
The high fives and when you watch your mate shoot a PB. I was over in WA late last year. I've shared this story before, but I was on the bottom, sort of on the edge, looking out over sand, and there was some fish. There was a lot of fish sort of hanging out just beyond that range, and a manta ray come in straight over top of me. I didn't even know it was there. And then I looked up on the surface, and my mate could see the whole thing, and it covered me completely,
Yep.
And it was cool to be able to, it's good. It's nice having GoPro footage and stuff other people can kind of share. But, having a mate there is, even cooler, I reckon.
To experience it, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And the serious side of things, you were telling me before we jumped on, you've helped a mate with a loss of motor control, an LMC or a Samba, depending on what language you want to use. Walk us through what happened there.
It was a couple of years ago with an experienced diver. He dove deep and he was down for quite a long time, and I seen him coming up from the bottom, and he was dragging a big gold spot tusky, pretty much skull dragging it, and he was sort of kind of rushing, and I sort of seen he was a bit moving pretty quick and a bit I guess you say
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, and he got to the surface, and he started having a somber, and I was probably like 3 or 4 meters away from him. I knew straight away what was happening. And
Describe what you saw. He was laboured on the way up. He was clumsy in his movements.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was rushed, so I knew he was pushing his limits. And as he got to the surface, he just, within a second, just started doing the whole somber shake and
the Harlem Shake.
Yeah. And I knew straight away what was going on, so I've gone over to him to assist him. And him being an experienced diver, he's rolled on his back to
to make sure his face is clear so he can get a breath.
He's rolled on his back, so he knew what was going on.
Yep.
And I've gone under him and I put my hands on him and I was like, breathe, mate, breathe, and talking to him, and he's talking back to me, and I was like, you just let me know when you're right, when you're good. And he's like, yeah, I'm good now. I was like, sweet. Kept an eye on him, and then we just jumped back in the boat, and he's like, that's me, done for the day.
That's you for the day. Yep.
And he's like, thanks, mate. And I was like, no worries. Like, yeah.
There's a number of cool takeaways from that. Where did you learn how to pay attention on that critical moment when your mate's about to surface, and how did you know sort of what to do?
I wouldn't say it's from experience of that happening, because that's the first time I've seen that happen in the water. I think it's just about being a good dive buddy, being aware of what can happen, learning those things through even free dive courses. You learn buddy rescues and stuff. That obviously the first time it's happened, but I just knew what to do. And
so blowing across their face, because we've got those nerve receptors under the eyes, that can help bring someone or help them stay conscious, because he's sort of on that verge of losing consciousness. You were tapping on his face and you were talking, you were saying his name, getting him to breathe. There was no screaming going on. It was all calm and collected.
Yeah, it was all calm.
You just pretty much helped bring him back to normal consciousness.
Pretty much, yeah. I just held him there until his body was all good and he wasn't shaking. And
he must have been grateful he had a good buddy that day.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Yeah.
Mate, I would be. Like, I'm 125 kilos, so I just look for dive buddies that can actually carry me up.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of person to move in the water too, and it's quite a clumsy thing, as we were discussing earlier. When you did your freediving course, was that a big part of what you learnt, like how to handle someone when they're unconscious and how to hold them, any of that sort of stuff? Did you take his mask off his face or anything like that?
At that time, I didn't, because he was conscious and he was looking at me and he was talking to me, so I sort of didn't even think to take it off. But I guess it was a different situation where he wasn't conscious, then take his mask off and do what was needed. But he was conscious at the time, and I learned how to. When I did my freediving course, I did it later in my spearfishing journey, and I should have done it a lot sooner because I learned a lot. But yeah, how to hold someone, how to grab someone, even like when they're not at the surface, but at depth as well, like the techniques and that.
Sometimes I think it doesn't really matter whether a freediving course comes sooner or later. If you do it later, like you almost have a lot more context to hang the knowledge on.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like you can immediately see how it's going to apply to your spearfishing, and then maybe how some of it is not 100% like for what we do, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because spearfishing is different from freediving, but we can learn a lot from a lot of it, I reckon.
Definitely learn a lot.
Yeah. Mate, talk about a froth moment, like a time where you would just like, I always see you guys, you're at the boat ramp down there, Tweed, holding up all these massive fish. You guys always look like you've had a good day out. Talk about like one of those moments where you get up to the surface and you guys are all high-fiving, something memorable from recent.
There was one good time off Moreton when I shot my first wahoo, and I had I had 2 mates, one young fella's in the water, and it was his first time sort of like deeper diving, and I shot the wahoo, and he was like, oh, what do I do? I was like, mate, chase after it, put a second shot in it, and we're both just working together to bring the fish in, and I think it was about 20 minutes of playing with this fish until it died in the arse, and then we finally got it back on the boat. And as I was lifting the fish up with 2 hands on the side of the boat, my mate's picked it up, and he's like, holy crap, this is a big wahoo, like your first wahoo, well done. We got on the boat, gears tangled everywhere, and we're just like frothing, we're stoked, we're high-fiving, we're just like just unbelievable, and we're all just like cheering each other on, and it was all teamwork too. Like it was, have a dive buddy in the water helping. There was my mate in the boat. He was like keeping an eye on us. He threw another gun in for us, like to put like a third shot. Took 3 shots to slow it down. So just that alone was amazing. And then getting it home at the boat ramp and just still on a high from it.
Yeah,
that was a very memorable time.
What'd it go? What'd it weigh?
Off memory, I think it went 25 or 26.
Yeah, nice, man. I still haven't shot one, eh?
Yeah.
Like, but everyone seems to fire on them. They're a pretty special fish.
Yeah.
That'd be cool to do it with your mates too. Like
Yeah.
you say, like, I think there's a mentality that's changing in spearfishing. Like, it's like we do view it more as a team. And I think up here, particularly sort of northern New South Wales, southeast Queensland, we're diving current, we're diving deeper water, deeper reef a lot of the time. A lot of the guys up here are really competent, but it's not a kind of diving you want to do by yourself.
No, definitely not. It's definitely, I agree with like a lot of current, the viz. I'd say it's hard diving, but if you're competent as a diver, like it's doable. And if you've got good dive buddies, you've got a good team, good crew, good mates to do it with, then like anything's achievable out there. Within saying that, you still got to respect the ocean. So if it's getting too rough or there's too much current and it's not feeling safe, or you're diving and then your buddy's way off that way because of the current, it's kind of like it's a bit sketchy. And so there's nothing wrong with like saying, oh, let's pull the pin today. It's just getting a bit unsafe. So
you're an ex-military bloke. Like one of the great things I find about working with ex-military people, emergency services, everyone's kind of understands that when you're in high-risk situations, a hierarchy and having very direct communication is actually like it's not rude. We're not being polite. This is something that we use to mitigate risk. Talk to me about how that works on your guys' boat, and do you find yourself taking a leadership position with your crew, or how does it work? I know I'm maybe putting a lot of language on some stuff, and it's a lot more informal than that. But I think when you have this sort of background, it sort of naturally lends to this sort of dynamic. Would you agree, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I always find that whoever's boat you're on, they're owning the boat. They call most of the shots. Respect them. Respect what they say on their boats. But even saying that, if you feel like something's unsafe, like you can speak up. It's all about communicating, because if you don't say anything, no one's going to know. Myself, I've found in the past, I think because of my experience in working in corrections, I can get a little bit like short, but it's not like in a mean kind of way. It's kind of just like just trying to make sure everyone's safe and everything's running smooth, because like I'm really big about safety, and like if something were to happen, it comes back on me or the boat owner. But it's also, you got to be calm as well, and like just slow everything down, and yeah.
When I was up north on an Adreno charter, we had this weird thing. There were like 4 boats out, and 2 blokes at the same time stabbed themselves. And one of them was on the radio, like literally calling in, like, we've got serious, like, a stab wound here, and he's coming back in. And then we were like on the radio, we're coming back in too. Another guy's done the same thing. And the guy on our boat, it wasn't as severe, but he had more or less just dropped a really sharp knife straight into his leg, I believe. And I was coming from a corrections background, and I remember putting on a pair of gloves to help treat him. Yeah. And it all come back to me, like, because in corrections, when you're putting on a pair of gloves, normally you're attending an incident.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you're getting ready to deal with, like, potentially hostile people and stuff like that. And it was actually nice to be putting on a pair of gloves to be helping someone rather than the opposite. How do you feel like you react in emergency situations? Definitely, I think having this kind of background helps. You don't have that sort of. Some people have a real strong fear response.
Yeah.
And other people just sort of settle down into this like controlled response mode. Does that help you when you're in these sort of situations?
Yeah, definitely. Like any situation I've been, I've always found myself like everything just gets slowed down. I'm aware of what's going on. I'm like quick to take action, to assist, to help. It's like not even just an emergency, but when we're in the water with the boys spearfishing, like my brain just goes in action mode. Like, as a quick story, one of the boys shot a would have been roughly a 70 kilo black marlin off
Oh,
toy. Yeah. And he shot it with a reel gun. And I was like, in my head, within a split second, I'm like, he just shot that with a reel gun. And I just dove down without even thinking, down, unhooked my float line off my gun and hooked it onto his gun.
Oh, beautiful.
And he's let go. And then we went from there and got another gun, another float, and we got it in. He's like, oh, thanks so much for
quick response.
Yeah, quick response. And it's just like, it was just automatic. Like, so I think it's good to have that within yourself.
100%.
And also your mates you dive with, you know, that you can rely on if something
Yeah,
happens.
Yep.
Wherever it would be.
A lot of the time too, like it's a trained response. Like you don't start off that way. You get that way from experiencing being in those situations,
Yep.
and then you learn how to respond better. And as long as you're a person that sort of reflects on things and you take an improvement away from everything you do, it's a good thing. Do you give a lot of feedback to the blokes you dive with, like particularly the new guys?
New guys, yeah, I try to give feedback. I always I'll ask them, hey, do you want any feedback? Or if I see them, they might be doing something wrong, or their finning technique's wrong, or they're diving down and they're going on an angle instead of straight down. Oh, hey, just noticed you're diving like this, or you're kicking like this. I suggest you try this and just sort of give the feedback. And
it's so massive, diving on an angle.
Yeah.
Even really experienced guys do it, particularly when you're in current. You find yourself heading or working into the current on an angle away from it, and you, like if you're diving in like 60 feet of water, mate, it means you're doing a 100-foot dive to get to the bottom.
Taking you longer, more energy.
Do you see the corkscrew as well for some people? If they've got have you seen that where one fin stroke is more dominant than the other?
No, I actually haven't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean these are like common faults, and I mean a good dive buddy will tell you, you know. And if you don't have ego and you're just like willing to learn and listen, like
it's all about just educating other divers. And I hope that any of my mates that see me doing something wrong or right or need improving, like I'd expect them to tell me and take it as a learning, educational thing.
Yeah, that's how we all get better.
Yeah, that's
the rising tide.
Yeah.
Float lines, you touched on it with this marlin. Like that's a great reason to have a float.
Yeah, definitely.
Diving off Queensland too, though, heaps of us dive with reel guns.
Yep.
And it is a more advanced form of spearfishing because, like you said before, like if you shoot something and you've got a float line, you can just potentially let everything go, swim to the surface, you're all good.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys want to go straight into like super alpha hunter mode with their reel gun, land on the bottom. Talk to me about your sort of how you view this sort of system, these two setups.
Everyone's different. Me personally, I don't even own a reel gun. I've always used a float and a float line. Most of my mates use reel guns, and they're really good at using reel guns. No issues, but they've been spearing for a fair while and quite experienced, and they usually have a belt reel as well, so that extra line. I've been thinking about getting a reel gun to put on my small roller, but just haven't really bit the bullet and done it yet. I think I'm too afraid of letting go, thinking it's on a float line and losing everything.
Yep, and you do that too.
Yeah.
Like you do that a few times, like having done it, that sort of changeover myself.
Yeah.
And it's potentially like $1,000.
Yeah.
Down the drain.
I've already lost a roller gun before, so that wasn't a good experience.
Trevor Ketchan, he works here at Adreno. He always says like, don't use a roller gun unless you're prepared to lose it.
Yeah.
Unless you can afford to lose it as well, because it's $1,000. Like some people,
Easy.
you know, So it's a lot of money to potentially let go. Because you, if it's a battle between you going the surface and you getting a fish, the smart choice is always go to the surface.
Yeah.
But I think definitely. How much diving do you think guys should possibly have under their belt before they would even consider making a decision to go to a reel gun?
A good question. I actually don't know.
Well, you've done a lot, and you still haven't done it.
No,
so
well,
that speaks about it to me.
Yeah, I just like all the plus sides of having a float line, the safety side of it, having a float on the surface for boats, for your other dive mates to see. They can see when you're down, where your line is. If you're like mono line gets caught up on the reef, or your spear gets stuck on the reef and you can't, like especially in current, you can't get it off. You can just let it all go, come back with the boat, dive down and get it later. And that's happened to me a number of times.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I had a reel gun, like I'd probably would have lost a few guns. Like,
unless you had a mate that just clipped onto it really fast for you, or the boat had something like, and they were onto it and they were in the right spot. But yeah, you're right. It's just a great mitigation strategy for not losing any current.
I think there's pros and cons with them both. It's just each their
I was
own.
going to talk to you about structure. So, like, one of the big benefits of a reel gun is like when you want to, and this is again, it's a more advanced type of diving, but
Yeah.
going into caves or into artificial structure and stuff like that. Like, if you don't have a float line, it means less entanglement potentially.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that how do you get around that with your float line?
Because I've been using float line my whole life, I'd say I've got pretty good what I call line management. So I know where my float line is. It floats. If I'm diving around structural caves, I know where my float line is behind me. I always look back and like, oh, it's a bit too close to the rock there, or ledge, or oh, it's caught up there. I'll just go back and unhook it, kind of thing. That can be a nuisance for like more reef diving where a reel gun would come in handy. But if you don't have much experience around shallow reef with a float line, then it can be a bit of a pain in the ass.
So you coil it, carry it in your left hand, is it?
Or you get a sharp clip and you can like halve it.
Yep.
That makes sense, or make it shorter, which I would do often, like even around like spearfishing off fads. I'll do that. I'll halve the float line, so then float line's not going that way around the fad.
Around the fad.
That way, and that's happened a few times.
And dolphin fish or mahi, which you're targeting a lot out there, they go ballistic too.
Yeah, they go nuts. So.
And then it's a recipe for getting a good tangle around the fad.
Yeah, but I think going back on the question of like how much experience do you need before you get a reel gun, I guess you could say you feel confident that you can use a reel gun.
A lot of people walk into the shop and feel confident, and they haven't even been out though. So sometimes, like I'm not saying, like if you're a competent sort of person, generally in most types of things you do in your life, and you walk into a spearfishing shop, sometimes you can have this assumed level of I'm going to be competent at this too. But the reality is, like even if you are a competent person, there's still this massive learning curve you've got to go through.
Yeah, I'm still learning every day.
Me too.
All the time. But I think until you've not mastered, but got good line management with a float line and pretty competent to use that, then maybe you go up to a reel gun if that's suited for you or whatever. Each to their own end of the day for it. But
over in WA, a lot of the guys just refuse to start because they blame they're always in structure. But it's different. And I mean this is the reason why you join a club too, and you meet like local people because. I mean, the context is everything too. Yeah.
Also depends on like the terrain you're diving as well. So if you go up north off the Great Barrier Reef, reel guns come in handy massively.
Yeah, big open water as well, and sometimes you're not diving too deep
That's
either.
Right, yeah.
And it's clean. Everyone can see each other. Sometimes it's a good idea for making the transition too. I think. Yeah. It's like you have a reel gun, but it's still connected to a float with a float line.
Yeah, you get used to how the reel works, how the line comes out. Managing that line on the reel, definitely. That's a good point.
Do you have any preference with regards to your float and rig line, like in terms of like what composition of line or?
I use a Rife float line, a 30-meter float line. It floats
the $400 a meter stuff.
Yeah, I think it was expensive.
That really nice super spectra type looking stuff.
Yeah,
it's beautiful, isn't it?
Really nice gear. It floats. It's visible. It's long enough for my diving. Like you want to have a float line that's long enough to your ability to dive. Because if you get a 15-meter float line and you're like getting competent at diving 20 meters, you'll be pulling that line down. So
I still think like guys should start with a 15-meter line because when you start pulling it down consistently. It's almost like an indication like, oh, sweet, I'm starting to get like decent at that level. And then you can add a 5-meter bungee or go and buy a 60-foot line or a 70-foot line. Yeah. It's almost like it's worth earning that the extra length of your line. But guys, experienced guys all, 30 meters. Have you had it hold you up though? Like when you're in current and you want to go a bit deeper and your line's fully stretched out?
Yeah, had that a few times. Yeah, because I started on a small length of line, and then I remember having a 20-meter and getting 20 meters and pulling it down like
frustrating.
Can't go any more, so I end up buying a 30-meter, which is like long, but it's plenty. And I run a big like Adreno yellow float, 30-liter float.
Oh, like the Remora type ones from I don't know the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, just the Spearmaster ones.
There's one over there. Yeah.
And that's good. That if you shoot big fish, that helps.
Can you pump them up? Like at what
just
PSI?
a bicycle tube thing.
So you just go to how much do you pump them up?
I
'Cause
pump it up just enough that you can compress it, because when it's in the sun, it expands.
yeah, Charles' law, temperature expansion. Yeah.
So that they're a good having a big float. Like, it's visible for boats. It's helps with big fish. Even if you get tired, you can just put your body weight on it. Keeps you afloat.
Yeah,
you can rest on it. I've done that heaps of times.
Yeah, that might have been handy with your mate that had the samba too. Like, you can put it under someone and let someone have a good rest. Yeah, you have stressful times too. Like, talk to me about a time maybe where you've given yourself a fright, or maybe you've learned something. Have you had anything really scary happen to you?
I haven't had a shallow blackout, or I've come close to a somber, where like I had the video rolling as well, and I've watched back on it. I've come up, and I felt tingling in the legs. I got a bit fuzzy in the eyes, and looking back on the video, you can see my head drop a bit, like to about here, and I'm blowing bubbles. I'm kind of doing them things, and I was like conscious enough to yell to my mate, keep an eye on me, and I was doing these ones, keep an eye on me, because I knew that I was close to the limits.
Yeah, nice.
That was sort of a bit of a, I won't say wake up call, but it just makes you realise like how important it is to have your mates there with you. You know, like if you're diving down, you don't want them swimming away where they can't see you, because if I were to somber or black out, they wouldn't know.
How's your recovery breathing or your hook breathing?
Yeah, good.
Yep, sweet. So is that something you sort of practice pretty often? Is that your part of your normal dive?
That's part of my normal dive. I come up and I'm just like gulping air massively, and
because that can help prevent a samba or an LMC as well. Like if you just do that and practice it regularly, that's cool.
Getting that oxygen back in.
The other thing you touched on too earlier with that experienced guy having the LMC, like when you're diving with experienced guys too, they tend to weight themselves appropriately. But when you're diving with fairly new guys, or sometimes guys that maybe like me, they're not diving very much, they're a little bit out of shape. They want a bit of hand on their crap duck dive technique, so they overweight themselves. Do you see that much? Because if you are overweighted and you come back up to the surface to breathe, and you breathe out, you're going to sink like a rock. Well, I'm betting your mate was weighted appropriately, so he was already sort of quite buoyant.
Yeah.
Because he was weighted appropriately for the depths he was diving. Is that something you see though?
No, actually, I don't. I haven't seen anybody that looks overweighted. Everyone I dive with, even some of the newer guys, they all seem pretty weighted well.
Yeah, cool.
Some
guys too, like I head out shore diving, and if you're diving like sub 30 feet before you dive, like it's quite good to be neutral at sort of 2 or 3 meters rather than 10, which is what we go for when we're out a bit wider. But just something. Some guys, they just forget to take weights off as well and things like that. But it does make a small difference to your diving, but it makes a massive difference if you have a blackout. So.
Yeah, definitely for sure.
So what about sharks?
Love them.
Yeah?
Yeah. I went diving yesterday and we came across a few bronze whalers, and I think they're just beautiful creatures, but with respect. Yeah. You got to respect them, and
bit like prisoners, aren't they? They try to intimidate you, but you sort of, you know, like with a little bit of body language and a little bit of like confidence, you can deal with a lot of the sort of the harsh turns and the arced backs.
I definitely believe that sharks can pick up your confidence and your persona in the water. Yeah. So I'm always carrying a GoPro on my mask, and like yesterday, for example, I seen the bronze whaler come in, and he came in reasonably quick to check us out. So I dove down on him and swimming alongside it, and I always try and get close as I can, but it just kept its distance, and I kept swimming towards him, and he kept his distance, and then eventually just buggered off. But it's also about reading their body language, you know, like if he was a bit sporadic and not acting like that, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe we should get out of the water and change spots. But generally, from my experience, they're very curious, and they just see you as another marine animal checking you out. And
what about bull sharks?
Same thing. Like I've had the same experience with bull sharks, tigers, and bronze whalers. Same thing. They come check you out. I'll dive on them and swim towards them and just get good video footage. And it's kind of like almost like, oh shit, what's this swimming towards me? I'll keep my distance. That's my experience.
Have you had a hard charge before?
No.
No.
Yeah,
I have. I kind of have up on the sunny coast, but like I hear what you're saying. It's like you have this sort of this confident assumption that, you know, like and you project that into the water, the sharks kind of sense that, and
Yeah.
they work with you.
Yeah.
But there are these times where you have to have this wisdom, like when a tiger shark's in that mode where it's feeding, it's like, yeah, I'm probably just going to get out.
Yeah.
Even if you move a kilometre away, like the shark can cover that distance in 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's enough time for it to sort of bring the energy down a bit, and it changes a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely reading the situation, reading the shark. Yeah, if a shark's charging you or getting too curious, that's a bit like, oh, not sure about this. Might as well just move.
Do you guys move a lot?
No, I think over the years, probably maybe once or twice we've moved
Yeah.
spots because they were just sort of hanging around too much, like
Numbers are a bit more of an intimidation factor too. Like
Yeah.
1 or 2 sharks is fine, but you get 4 or 5 of them and they're buzzing you
Yeah.
every dive. It's like,
Yeah, then they're like, they know what's going on, and it's like, if you're going to shoot a fish, then
they want free
they're
lunch.
going for a free feed, and you're like, you might just move spots.
Yeah, cool. Mate, you always shoot decent Jewie. Have you got them tuned?
Pardon?
Jewfish. You always shoot decent Jewfish Mulloway.
I've only shot 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Mate, Instagram has told a different story.
Don't believe Instagram.
Well, what's one of your favourite species to hunt then?
Did
Did you shoot your Jewies like in close or out wide?
The first one was out off Morton, somewhere I can't remember. It was somewhere. It was, I don't know, 15 metres deep, just an overhang, and there was a school, and I was like, just stumble upon them.
Oh, I
was
love
sweet.
that.
Shot that one, then one was off Tweed.
Deeper.
Nah, 15 metres,
Oh, wow.
give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of guys think you have to go either super deep or super shallow for Jewies. So, and you've shot both of them sort of that like mid-water
Yeah.
everyday dive depth.
I honestly don't know. It's hard to say. Trying to figure all that.
I
stuff
hear I
out.
was thinking you were the Jew whisperer.
No,
Sorry,
that's not
bro.
me.
I landed you in it. Love your honesty.
I'll be honest.
What's the species you like hunting and targeting regularly?
I like shooting or targeting black spot tuskies.
Yeah.
Just because they're probably my favourite fish to eat, and they're a good fight as well. It's another one I like to shoot.
Now, we'll give us some tips on black spot. So,
Oh,
how do you go with them? Do you like bomb diving them, or are you a bottom hunter?
bottom hunter.
Yeah.
So they'll just appear, and literally they'll come in, check you out, and you got to they don't hang around for long. So you got to take that. They'll present themselves close enough to take a shot, and so when they're there, you just take your shot. Because if you don't, they're going to be gone. So,
Mate, some days you just, I don't know, when I don't get out for a while and then I go out, I make every mistake like known to man.
Yep.
And it's a frustrating day experience. Do you ever have days like that?
I've had a few days like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the common mistakes you make, and how do you avoid doing it regularly?
Rushing shots
Okay.
is definitely a big one of mine. I've always got to remind myself just to slow down when I'm in the bottom. And just taking your time with your shot, because there's so many times where I've gone to shoot fish thinking, yep, definitely got it, and then I look back at my video footage and it's just like I've just skimmed the top of it, or I'm just out of range, or they have turned as you've taken the shot. It's because you've flinched, or that little bit of body movement, they can pick that up. So definitely just slowing things down, definitely being relaxed.
So, okay, so you're sort of saying a lot of your accuracy issues are connected to your own body language, behavior, and the mechanics of you shooting.
Yeah.
Have you had issues with your gun setups or inconsistency with your setups, or talk about that if you can?
One most recent one is my flopper on my gun. So I've had the same shaft on my roller since I bought it, and it's actually super rusty, and the flopper's loose, and I've tried to tune it, but it's just not happening. And for a while there, I was shooting fish and they were just coming off because the flopper was engaging all the time. I was super frustrated, and I was like, no, that's it. I'm going to bite the bullet and buy a new shaft. And I used that shaft yesterday actually, and I shot a nice little Maori cod, and it just was dead on accurate. I was just like, yes. I was loving it. So yeah, it's definitely important to maintain your gear properly. Everything's running right, because it can make the difference between
Oh.
leading the fish and not. So
100%. I can completely relate to what you're
Yeah.
saying too. Do you have a flinch with like one of the beauties of having a GoPro on your head is that you do get to sort of analyze your footage and see where you're going wrong. Have you noticed you've got a flinch? Are you compensating for recoil? I mean, because you must have noticed the difference between going from a roller to a conventional gun as well.
yeah, so from a conventional gun, I've got a 1400 Rob Allen double rubber, and yeah, 2 hands of that because it's got a big kickback. But I've noticed going to a roller, I still use like the 2-hand technique on it, which like works fine, but I've gotten used to using 1 hand, but still making sure everything's like squared away, straight, not moving too much. Yeah, bit of a transition, but
Did any of your marksman principles from firing a rifle come into spear guns?
definitely, definitely, it's like instilled in me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about slowing down, even like pulling the trigger, you know, not snatching it, but just a slow pull. And it's like when you're firing a rifle, when you get taught that, it all comes into play. Even like looking down the barrel, all that. Yeah.
One of the other things we're pretty bad at in spearing is like none of us go out and practice accuracy.
No.
Like we don't fire a gun or sight a rifle in like you do when you're hunting.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone, if you've got a new rifle, you take it to the range, you set up a bit of paper at 50 meters and you know, put a couple of, rounds into it and then you slowly adjust and make sure you're all dialed in. With spear guns, we just go straight from the shop to the boat, out 20 miles, jump in the water, dive down and hopefully shoot a fish. It's not real honouring sometimes to the fish, I think, but it's just like without having a swimming pool, like to just jump in and with targets set up, it's quite painful, isn't it, to sight spear gunning?
Yeah, but I think it just comes down to trial and error. And if you keep missing, you've got to keep reloading, and that gets old real quick. So it makes you sort of
be economical with your shots.
Yeah. But I don't know anybody that goes and tunes their gun in or practices shooting in a pool.
I went away on a big trip to New Zealand a few years ago, and we were targeting big kingies off the Three Kings, and I was using a breakaway gun. I'd never used one before. I went down to the Tweed River, and I mounted a rubber target on an old car in the river there.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I just punched a few through that, and that was cool because I took all 4 or 5 of my guns, and I realised like 2 of them were just so woeful.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. But it does take time. Like, it's like you could go out for a spear, and here you are lying in a river shooting a rubber target on a car. Like, it's not as much fun.
No, but I guess if you can dial your guns in and you know they're accurate, then it...
Or not accurate, as the
that's
case was with a few of mine. Yeah, they made me not really want to use them because you just want to have confidence when you pull the trigger, don't you?
Yeah.
What shafts do you run? Have you got a preference yet with brand?
I've always run the shafts that the guns come with, so the Rob Allen guns with the Rob Allen shafts.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Because they've dialed that recipe in over a lot of testing. And so you know that they've probably got it right. A lot of guys want to go in and retrofit everything. And it's like, well, it can be a good idea, but sometimes you're learning something that's already been tested and they know it's not quite right,
Well, I have put another shaft on my roller once before a couple of years ago to try it out. Same thickness, same length, like everything, but just a different shaft and whatnot, and flopper and had fins instead of the little in-cuts in the shaft. And it was just, I was missing fish to the point I'm like, this is so frustrating. Like, I even missed a wahoo one day with it, and I was like, it was that close. It was like from me to your way. And I was like, how on earth did I miss that fish?
They're the shots I miss. They're always the shots I miss when I get too close.
Frustrating. So I was like, back to the shop, and I was like, nah, I'm just going to get another shaft that's the same. As soon as I put that same shaft back on for that gun, fixed everything. So I don't know why it was out, but yeah.
You got some cheeky buggers in your crew? You guys have some fun times out there? Tell us a couple of gags.
When we're ever out in the boat, it's just always a good time. Always good banter, just talking crap. One of the boys is a bit of a larrikin. He's always good to go diving with. It's always a fun time. Yeah.
Go, give us the story. Aquabog, maybe.
Oh, mate, we've got heaps of heaps of Aquabog stories.
Yeah,
like,
it's my favourite.
Yeah.
It never gets old for me.
One of the boys has got a good boat, and it's good to do Aquabog off. Perfect platform for it. And one guy in particular, when we go out, he always gets the camera out and films and makes a joke, and it's just like awkward and funny, and just a good time.
Yeah, I've had photos of me taken in the water with an aquabog before. I was just like, if I ever see that on social media, you're friggin' dead.
I don't think they go past the boat, but
Brown Mr. Whoopies.
yeah, good fun.
Good times. Who's the larrikin? Name and shame. Who are your dive buddies? Which ones are the best buddies too? Like name and shame.
So one of my mates I go diving pretty often is Luke. He's got a good Haynes Hunter boat. He's a really good dive buddy, good mate as well. Always got each other's backs. I've got a few other mates. I've got another mate Damo. He's a good dive buddy. He's really good. Become a really good diver over the years as well. Our mate Regan, he's a larrikin. He's hilarious. Cracks me up. Cracks everyone up actually. Like, yeah, we went on a trip early last year up north, and he was the life of the party. Classic.
Yeah,
makes me laugh thinking about all the shit he says and does.
Just a larrikin in every sense of the word.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. How often do you guys take out new people? Or guys that are still fairly sort of inexperienced?
I wouldn't say that often, but there are a few guys that that like are experienced but still, I don't know, like somewhat new, I guess you could say, like, or have experience, but yeah, like with the guys I go diving with, not that often actual new guys. When I have a boat, it's not running at the moment, but it will be soon, hopefully. I'm more than happy to take new guys out.
Yeah.
As long as they're willing to learn and have respect for the sport and for the guys that are there diving with and just are willing to learn, basically, like especially about the whole safety side of things. Like,
okay, so I'm a new guy. I'm coming out with diving with you. Walk me through 5 ways I could do it right, and maybe a few ways I could do it wrong, and I wouldn't get invited back.
Definitely turn up on time is a big one. Like, that's massive. I always think, I don't know if it's me being harsh or not, coming from my background of work, but it's like, well, if you're late, would you be late for work? Probably not. So why be late? You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I think it's important to be on time, because if you're late, then you're holding everybody else up, and everyone's just keen to get out there. Pitching wherever you can on the boat. Pitching for fuel with ice. Generally, when I was starting out, I learnt to like always ask the owner, but hey, do you want me to grab a bag of ice, or just grab a bag of ice anyway and bring it up? Like, that's like.
It's always good to have more.
Yeah, that's right.
With ice.
What else? Like, even after you get back, help with cleaning the boat. Ask, hey, do you need a hand with this? And if the boat owner's like, no, you're right, mate, you can go. Like, all good. But definitely pitching in and offering to pitch in for fuel, because at the end of the day, the person that owns a boat, it's expensive to own a boat.
Yeah.
Like, it.
Bring out another 1,000, I think it's.
Yeah, pretty much. So, like, you know, you got boat rego, trailer rego, you got maintenance of the motor, maintenance of the boat, maintenance of the trailer. Like, there's all the wear and tear. So, more like.
The fuel is like the cheapest part of owning a boat.
That's right. So, yeah, if you can definitely pitch in for fuel, highly recommend you pitch in for fuel. And if they say it's $50 for the day, you know, like, sweet, no dramas. And yeah, if you put in and
good attitude,
and you know, like, you definitely be asked back for sure. Like, yeah.
I've had blokes get seasick and they fall asleep when they're boaty. I've had guys that want to come in early because they've got night shift. To me, these are not things you do, particularly with people that aren't necessarily your mates. They're just people you're going spearing with for the day, and you're kind of there on their goodwill. So you've just kind of always got to keep that in mind, I reckon. Yeah,
I think so. Just having respect as well. Like, if you're going out with someone, they're like, oh, what time will you be back? I'm just saying, I don't know. Yeah. So if you've got work that afternoon or
can't come,
it's just like, well, I can't guarantee you're going to be back. But mate, like, I've been out and guys, I hear when I come dive, I'm like, yeah, I'll come diving. What time you can? I'll be like, hey, do you have a rough idea? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. And it's like, oh, I've got to leave for work at 2:00 or something. Oh no, we'll can't guarantee. I'm like, no, all good. Like, I'll pass, but thanks.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I have gone out and they're like, yeah, I've got to do something in the afternoon, so we'll make sure we're back before then. So it just all depends. Like, yeah.
It's my professional Noob Spearo setup falling apart here again. What about in terms of like training? So you got potentially new guys coming out. If they have access to sort of training, like I know if you're in AUFQ, a lot of the time they subsidise like marine radio training, like marine first aid, your boat license. There's quite a lot of tickets and stuff you can do along the way. Do you think they're all helpful? Do you think they're a baseline? I mean, what do you think?
I think just having a boat license is definitely handy. Or even just being competent in driving a boat. You know,
Yeah.
like you can have a boat license and still not know how to drive a boat. It's a bit different in the river than out at sea. Being confident in driving a boat, even just general like first aid knowledge is always handy for sure.
Yeah. Tourniquets are massive, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you carry them on your boat?
No.
What's your crew
I've
like?
got a on my boat, when I have my boat running, I've got a first aid kit.
Yep.
And all the other guys I dive with, they got first aid kits, like just a basic sort of one.
Yeah. I mean, a major trauma is the biggest thing we're going to have to deal with. Like someone gets struck by a prop or a shark or something like that. Or your dive knife, as I saw like before. So learning how to deal with major bleeding, so I think pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you can get your head around it and practice it a few times. Yeah, awesome, man. What's your gear like from head to toe? You mentioned you're using a Rob Allen 1.4. What about in terms of wetsuit and?
I've got a Rob Allen 1400. I've got a 1200 roller, Rob Allen. I've got that big Adreno 30 litre float, the Rife 30 metre float line.
Suits?
I've got a 3.5 mil Rob Allen open cell, and I bought a Chinese 5 mil wetsuit, which is
junk.
No.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it's lasted 2 seasons so far and still going. So that was like cost me next to nothing.
Yeah.
What else? I just got like basic like booties. And,
These 3 mil Ocean Hunter ones with this red plush lining in them.
Yeah.
I got a pair maybe a year ago. I don't think I'll wear another pair of booties though.
No.
Nah, that's super good, man. They're nice to put on. They're warm, comfortable, and I think the lining just lends well to helping your foot sit in a foot pocket all day.
Yeah,
because it's like you think about it, like your foot's stuck in it, and you're potentially finning for. Like I don't even like to go boaty. If someone says, "Oh, okay, boaty," I go, "Okay," and then, mate, I'll swim all day. But like, it's a lot of like time to have your foot wet and inside a rubber foot pocket that's not particularly ergonomically designed for your foot. It's not like you go and get a molded set.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I like them. Yeah. But previous to that, I haven't been real fussy because you rock hop and you punch holes in them every day, and it's like
just cheap. Socks or cheap booties.
And Crocs.
Crocs
if you're rock hopping.
A few mates wear Crocs.
Yeah. They're good on the boat too.
They actually really good at work and treat. What else? I just got like $2 Bunnings gloves.
Yeah,
so they got the grippy stuff on the on the palm.
How they go with the lobsters?
Great.
Yep.
Actually, when we went yesterday, I grabbed the lobster, just everything just straight on top, and don't feel much like.
Do you get Easterns where you're diving? Like the Eastern rock lobster, we call them a pack horse in New Zealand. I don't know if they range as far north as you are.
We got painted crays, and we get I can't remember the name of the other ones. They're more of a browner look to them.
Yeah, there's
Eastern.
There's 4 or 5 different
I can't
vegetarian ones we have, but they're all vegetarians. The Easterns are a carnivore though, but they're more of a temperate water species. I don't know if they come as far north as where you are, but. Yeah, no, that's cool. All right, so it sounds like you're nearly sponsored by Rob Allen. Like you've just dropped Rob Allen like 15 times in this chat.
I like the gear. I like the gear.
Yeah, it's a Toyota or a spearfishing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah, I like the gear. It works. It just comes off the shelf, ready to go. You don't really have to do anything. It just works, does the job. It's durable. Like I don't even look after my gear really. Like I just wash it down. That's it. I throw it around. Yeah, it just works. So,
mate, you're in the same sort of part of the world as me, and you have sort of got out and done a few different trips and charters and stuff. For guys that are on a budget, like let's say, they're just everyday people, right? What's some real good bang for your buck trips that you've done around this part of the world?
There's one I've done a few times up north off Airlie Beach. We have a company called Pro Sail. They do a dedicated spearfishing trip. It's 5 days out on the outer reef and live aboard on this big super maxi yacht. It even not just the spearfishing side of it, but the whole experience, like sailing on the boat, the crew, where you sleep, what you eat. The whole thing is like worth every cent. Like, I highly recommend that trip because you just get so much out of it. Like, and the spearfishing's unreal. Like, clear water all the time. So many different types of fish. Like, it's good. That's definitely.
Did you have much adjustment between spearing down here and spearing up there? Or same? Just learning the species?
Learning the species, and it's just easier diving up there, I think, because you're not really battling current. It's not super deep. Good viz. Kind of spoiled up there.
Yeah.
So every time I come back from a trip down here, it's just like, oh man, it's so much hard. Like, it's harder work to spear down here. You got current, you got less fish,
Green water.
Yeah, the viz is hit and miss all the time. Yeah. But if you can do a trip up north, out on the outer reefs, anywhere, it's just highly recommended. Like, it's worth saving the money up and doing it because it's a trip of a lifetime, I should say. Yeah.
Mate, couple of questions left before we head on out. Earlier you mentioned you don't mind a bit of seafood. What's your go-to recipes, and how do you impress Crystal?
I've got a few recipes. There's one good recipe that one of my good mates used to make, and I called it. I can't remember what he called it, but I just called it like the special Thai fish dish. But I learned it from him, and I make it every so often now. And
Walk us through it.
Oh, it's just like cutting the fish up into pieces, chucking in the pan, garlic and butter, some coriander, some chili. Make sure that's just cooked, so the meat's still soft. Bit of rice, chuck that on, soy sauce, a bit of coriander, some chives on top. Sprinkle a bit of that, what's that? That sweet soy sauce you get.
Oh, yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Sprinkle a bit of that on, and then you get, I think it's peanut oil, or I use coconut oil in a small pan with some chopped up garlic and ginger, and you bring that to the boil till that's like golden brown, and then you just like whoosh it on, or sizzle it on, and it goes. And it's just like
looks fancy too.
Oh, it looks fancy. It tastes great.
Yeah.
That's one I like to do, and then there's another.
It sounds like you got all those Thai flavors going there: coriander, ginger, garlic, and the soy.
Yeah.
I'd almost call it death by soy. It sounds good.
Yes.
Mate,
good.
I'm very partial to a fish dish. Have you done anything unusual with seafood? Have you tried anything weird? Do you like your sashimis or your
I love
ceviches?
sashimi. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got one of the boys we dive with, he does really good sashimi of all his fish. Like, he always posting online, and it's just like, oh, that looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves it. It's good.
It's like a lot of things in life. You go to that little bit of extra effort, and you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
It's like you're investing in the cooking process, but the rewards are always worth the work.
Yeah,
I think
definitely. I also like getting a whole fish, cutting slices in it, and just lathering it in butter and garlic and chucking it in the oven. No outfall or nothing, just in the oven, and just let it cook and sizzle up, and it's unreal.
What fish do you use a lot for that? What's your favourite species to use?
Moses perch,
Yeah.
sort of those reef species that are sort of like a good size to put in the oven. The cook hole. Yeah, that can take up the whole oven tray. Or two that will fit just on oven trays.
Yeah, love it.
Is good. Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
So you're a guy that spares to eat for sure, by
Pretty
the
much.
sounds
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, we're going to have to get you a copy of 99 Spare Recipes. And
That'd be unreal.
yeah, well, I'm purely giving you one for the promotional value in this podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm just joking.
I'll be cooking up those recipes, posting online.
Yeah, love
good.
it. Love it. Mate, a few quick questions getting out of here.
Yep.
If you had to start all over again, what would you do differently?
Oh, good question. Probably do a freediving course
Faster.
sooner than later. Yep.
Or a spearfishing course with Noob Spearo. That'd be
Yeah.
even better.
Heard about them.
Yeah.
I think I'd even like, if there was a spearfishing course when I was around, when I started, I'd definitely do one. I'd even do one now because you're always learning stuff, learning from other people. You just don't know what you're going to learn.
And spearfishing is a bit of a lifestyle. So even though, like you were talking about on the pro sail trip, like the people you hang out with are a massive part of it as well.
Yeah.
And spearfishing does attract an eclectic but cool bunch of people, I find, most of the time. There's very few dickheads around in spearfishing, in my experience.
Yeah, everyone I've been around spearfishing with, or people I've speared with, or trips I've been on with other people, everyone's very similar. Everyone's pretty chilled, easygoing. They're all like there for the same reason. Yeah, just good vibes all around from everyone.
Dream spearfishing destination.
Oh, I don't even know, to be honest.
You go anywhere in the world, target any species.
Oh, I reckon maybe like the Solomon Islands or Vanuatu or somewhere, you know, like to shoot like your big pelagics like dogtooth tuna, big wahoo, big Spanish. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I've shot a small dogtooth tuna off Morton. It was tiny, but like the fact that I shot one and let alone seen one, like the stoke was real, and we were just like, this is so cool. But to shoot a big one would be unreal, but I think you got to have the right gear for that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you want to land it too, eh? Do it justice. Cool. Last question, man. For a person that's just starting spearfishing, what's your sort of number one tip for them?
I find guys starting out, it's hard to get in with like a crew or with people. I think I'd say for me, probably just having respect for the guys you're going spear fishing with. Put in, show that you're keen to learn. Don't be a dickhead. Like, and even get into like a club maybe as well would help, because you'd learn a lot and get around more people, and yeah.
There's a Tweed Gold Coast crew down your way for if guys looking for a club in that sort of area.
Yep.
And we've got the Sunny Coast guys. These clubs are starting to thrive again too, which is awesome to see.
Yeah.
So cool. Brad, mate, absolute pleasure. Where can people come and connect with you if they want to? Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, I got Instagram.
With all those Jewies?
I'm pretty active on there, yeah. I got Facebook, but I'm mainly on Instagram.
What's your handle on Instagram?
Zulus64.
Zulu64.
Yeah, or
All
just
right.
Brad. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
People can, I'll link it up in today's show notes. So if they go to noobspearo.com/Brad, I'll have your Instagram linked up there and a bunch of pictures maybe. That'd be cool, man. Awesome to have a yarn with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All good.
It is.